I can't believe that I'm rooting for Canada right now. And I say this because the new Prime Minister of Canada is visiting Trump at the White House.
I know Prime Minister Carney is in the Oval Office, I guess, with the president. I guess they're talking about, I don't know, whether the United States is going to invade Canada militarily or buy Canada or whatever. And what did Carney say when Trump
He
was about
said
this idea of buying Canada?
he's like, it's never going to happen. Never going to happen. Not
Right,
going to
never
happen.
for
And
sale. Right,
never for sale.
not for
And
sale.
Trump's like, never say never.
Happy Trailblaze Day. Always a day I look forward to every week. Being here with you.
It's our weekly therapy moment. Now listen, there's a couple of stories I know that you have that I have, but did your wife make it out of the airport okay? Because apparently flying is still not secure. We're still having issues with airports and airplanes.
We're still having issues. She changed her flight, so no longer flying out of Newark Airport. She's going to fly out of JFK this afternoon. Because who knows if any planes are going to take off out of Newark Airport? We just don't know. And gosh, maybe this has something to do with those Doge people. You think?
I mean, the guys who just rolled into every agency and decided to fire people, let them go, and not really think about what it takes to keep all of these various systems running, like our food safety and our air traffic control. Those guys?
Exactly. Those guys. I mean, look, who are we to believe that maybe people were out there, just going willy-nilly into these government agencies and just ripping out the wiring without actually paying attention to what it connected to. And so what we're now starting to find out is the Trump administration is actually really bad at running things. I mean, I think people thought they were going to come in and, shake things up and make them work better. Turns out it's amateur hour and Keystone Cops are running all the stuff and nothing is really working as it was promised.
Well, that's right. The systems that we weren't paying attention to, that we just expected to work and keep our lives easy. If you go to the airport, you expected a certain level of service. You go to the grocery store, you expect a certain level of food safety. Same thing with medicine. All of that is the stuff that they're messing up. But somehow, in this time, they have figured out how to make crypto really work for them. Trump is making so much money off of crypto.
A buttload of cash, I think is the technical term.
It's insane. So we're still unpacking and living this experience of where power is in the hands of a few people who already have money. And on top of that, then feel like they need to cut services to the people who have very little. So those who make less have to get by on even less as prices are rising. And these other folks just continue to make money. I did not grow up a radical. Like I just really believed in government systems. Like,
Yeah.
okay. This is what it sounds like now. This is what sends people over the edge of where they realize that they have to do things and really shake things up because I don't see the point of a government that can't give basic services to people. Or maybe that's part
Yeah.
of their plan.
I absolutely believe it is part of the plan because the more you then you lose trust in the government's ability to function, that the bureaucrats are, screwing things up and you can't really trust them. And then the insiders and all the, deep state is corrupting everything. Then you begin to only trust the one person that everybody in the government believes is trustworthy. As they sit around in a cabinet meeting and all praise the dear leader, that Donald Trump is the only person you can count on. He said it, it's me, I'm the only one. And he's been saying that from the beginning. And so when you undermine trust in the system, then you only can have trust in the one individual that promises to be able to fix the system. And that is how the authoritarian regime is complete.
Or you just give up, which we're not going to do. Maybe a day here and there. But right, that's the other part is really understanding that this has been building for some time. It's not just those of us who feel like this right now, but people have for many years felt like government has been failing in giving them a basic quality of life or giving them their due for their taxpayer dollars. Part of the challenge with the MAGA coalition is that they really would like to burn everything down, right? This idea that you pay tax dollars and you get something from them, that fundamentally is a problem for them. They would rather have, a tariff pay for everything. And if you don't get, whatever money is spent, great. And if there's not enough left to service your roads, build schools, or do anything else, oh, well, that's too bad.
Yes, but you know what there will be money for, apparently? There will be money to retrofit Alcatraz and put it back into service for the 360 or 70 people that it could house there and spend billions of dollars, or certainly $1 billion probably, to get it back up to speed and running because, Donald Trump likes to watch, The Rock or whatever movie it is that he thinks the American people want to get around. And I think even when you have Gavin Newsom, he used to be mayor of San Francisco and obviously now is governor of California. When you have Gavin Newsom say this is a ridiculous idea, look, I'm all for putting criminals in jail. Sure, let's do it. That's fine. I think there are probably more humane and newer ways to do it that cost us less money and could treat people like human beings. Because remember, as some of the activists from the prison movement would say, you go to jail as punishment, not for punishment. Right? Jail is losing your liberty.
Thing to remember is the punishment.
Absolutely. Losing your liberty is the punishment. Right. You don't go to jail to then get punished. And I think we too often think that when we send people to jail, that the harsher the situation, the better it is for them. And that is very hearkening back to like the medieval times. I mean, should we put them on a rack or something? I don't know.
I also would like to return to a time where, you prove people are guilty before you punish them versus disappearing people and deporting them, literally taking away their liberty, even though they have legal status. Because again, if they can do it, if they get away with doing it to random, guy on legal status who happens to be Latin American, they can choose to do it to other people who have legal status. Right? Like that's the slippery slope here. If you get rid of this idea that certain people should not get due process under the law, well, then nobody really needs it at the end of the day, right? You can just suspend it all around.
That's right. I was on TV this week with a Republican strategist person a Trump guy who was saying that he thought that it was fine, because why are Democrats defending, these bad criminals and gang members? And what I said to him was like, look, we may find a day that 20 years from now, when this is all over, Donald Trump is no longer even walking the earth. We may find a day that people who were associated with MAGA people, right? Because MAGA attacked the government. They attacked police officers. They did horrible things inside the Senate building. So we may find that movement was a radical movement, that it was a perhaps gang-like. Maybe it was terrorist.
Was it extremist? Was it an extremist?
Maybe it was extremists, right? Who did that? And so should we then, should some democratic government then go around and decide anybody who wore a red hat, like a tattoo, anybody who wore a red MAGA hat should now be hauled into court, and maybe not even hauled into court. Maybe they should lose their due process rights because they obviously were MAGA because they wore the hat. So therefore they must be MAGA. So we can put them in jail and send them someplace else if we want to. I don't think the Republicans would like that. I don't think that would be a good idea. I wouldn't like that though, as an American. But that is the result. That is the result. If we follow this course down the way, sooner or later, that brick is going to come around and hit you right in the face.
I just had an image of a brick hitting me in the face, and I think I might have kicked the thought I had out of my mind.
Sorry, I didn't mean to snatch it out of your brain.
What is this? Is this like in a cloth, a brick just being spun around? Is that? I mean, that is how you destroy it. It's a good way to destroy stuff, I guess, which is what's happening right now and breaking things in government. The idea of due process, though, and you were arguing it that, this could happen to you, and consider it, you as Republicans or MAGA, this could be you in 20 years. I actually think many people on the left would be perfectly happy, right? This idea that we have become a more punitive society on the right or left. This idea of punishment, and I want people to suffer because I suffered. That's part of what underlies that whole argument against student loans being relieved by the government. The government doesn't actually lose any money. Like, that's not real money. It just zeroes it out on the ledger and that's it. It gets written off. Like, that's not a problem for the government. But there are people who feel deeply that I had to struggle and suffer, and so you should have to also. And that to me seems like a bigger social challenge that we're facing about, and that's like you tried to say about, what does it mean to be human and treat other people like humans?
So here's where I will have a little bit of maybe a little difference. We don't agree on the fundamental point, which is that it should not be used as cruel. I do believe that you should make an investment in yourself and your future. And if you make an agreement to take out money and repay it, you should have to repay it unless there's some circumstance that forbids you from being able to repay it, right? That's in the way of your being able to repay it. So, and I did it, and I had to repay my loans, and so I'm probably one of those people who believe that. But what I don't, but when I did it, the society was also a different kind of society where we had different kind of supports. There were different kind of opportunities for people to make money. So the idea that somebody's going to live in poverty in order to pay back a loan, here's one thing the government could do that I think
is
everybody
real.
would
Let's
agree
be
on.
clear. That is
Right.
a very real situation. You're talking doctor. We are losing professionals because, and society needs these professionals. We need doctors, we need nurses, because how exorbitant it is now to get that type of education, which, by the way, until Reagan, you didn't have to pay for it. This is a Reagan era attack on this idea that education is a public good, that by getting educated and advancing your education and expertise, you are doing something that will benefit society, right? Reagan's the one who decided, let's have government backed student loans with this idea of like invest in yourself. And then universities can charge more because they're not
Yeah.
worried
So
about
here's
losing
what I would
people.
do. Here's what I would do that I think everybody could agree with, just to start. Zero out all student loan interest. There is no interest on student loans. So if I took out $15,000, which is around the real average of what people can take out. Most people think about, like, the way the Republicans put it is like we're subsidizing rich people who went to Ivy League schools, and that's not where most of the student loan debt is.
No,
Most of the
no,
student
because
loan debt is carried by people who had 5, 10, maybe $15,000 of student loans, and then they don't really have. Many of them didn't even graduate, right? So now they're sitting on a couple of years of student loans. They don't have a degree, so in the worst of both worlds, you could zero out student loan interest payment and by far improve people's lives. The vast majority of what I paid back on my student loan was interest. And if you could get rid of that interest and just pay back the $10,000, who can't pay back $10,000 over the course of 30 years? Right? You ought to be able to do that. So we could start there. We could all agree.
That's the
and then we
biggest
could get to
problem,
the
right?
next part.
It's even like when you're paying your mortgage, right? You start to pay, you're paying on the interest first before you start to pay on the principal. And these are fancy words for saying the bank is getting their money first before I actually pay off the debt.
That's
the actual thing that I now have been trying to pay off in installments, I don't actually get to, they're delaying my ownership of that so that they can get their money first. Right? This banking system is all sorts of rigged and messed up, but the fact that they applied that to people who have been told, and my generation was explicitly told, you have to go to college. If you don't go to college, you're not going anywhere. Nothing's happening in life. And actually then you probably should get a graduate degree too. But no one was sitting there, like we weren't from families where they could pay it all in cash. That's actually, legacy rich people, they're not worried about student loans. They don't need it. Throw cash at it. Done. Right? So it took something that was about public good and about advancing families and society and turned it into yet another money-making scheme for banks and big institutions. That's what the student loan racket is all about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, if we could get rid of that, I think it would be a great start. I think we also need to do all the things that I think the Biden administration did try to do, the public interest work, anybody who's teaching school or working in a hospital, in a tough place, or if we still had people doing foreign service workers, like if we still had that, sure, you go off in USAID, you're working on behalf of the national interest. I also think that what we need is a national community service program. I think everybody in the country should spend a year or two in community service to the nation, and you should get educational benefit for that year or two that you spent serving the nation. I think, one, that would be good to help people start their educations. Two, it would give us some common sense thing, and you can't exempt yourself, right? This is one of these things, like if you're in Israel, you got to serve in the military. I don't think everybody should have to serve in the military, but I think everybody should have to do community national service regardless of your income level, because it will then create some level of binding between people of different generations, of different income levels, different geographies, and everybody will have like their national service year. Like, what did you do for your national service year? What did you, where were you, where did you serve? It's a thing that we just culturally, outside of like reality TV shows or internet memes, we just don't have a lot of things that we all share in common that bind us together as Americans. And for me, that's worth spending the money.
It's almost like you're saying diversity of experience is necessary for growth and being around different types of people. Are you arguing for mandated diversity, Jamal?
Wait a minute.
What?
I think there's a word they use about that.
We'll to get back to that. You mentioned,
Yes.
we were talking about, right, money and different government schemes, how to make money. I love how the Trump administration continues to think that handing over money will solve these massive social problems and policy challenges. For example, we need more babies in America, right? This whole proto-natalist movement. Yes, birth rates are low
Ooh,
because
big
it's really
words.
hard and expensive to have children in America because there's zero public support, and they discourage social, network support too. The Trump solution is like $5,000 for every new baby. Let's hand them money. Like, what happens for the next 18 years? $5,000 to have a baby. What happens next 15 years?
Right.
18 years. Like where's everything else supposed to come from when you're cutting all the supplemental nutrition programs, the WIC program, like all of these things that we're trying to help make sure that babies remained healthy in the United States, because you still have to pay to deliver a baby in the US. You still have to pay for the first couple of years of healthcare and all of that, which in most developed countries, most of Europe, for example, you don't have to do that. The government actually helps with this idea. So Trump, the irony is that they've stated that they want more children. They want to invest in this, but their way of investing is Trump's like, oh, let me just pay people off. And the same thing with immigration. Trump hasn't been meeting his stated numbers and goals for deportation. So you know what? Let's give him $1,000 to self-deport. I'm like, dude, $1,000 ain't buying you that, that one-way ticket to Venezuela right now. Come on, barely,
Right.
like maybe. But that's the solution. Just kind of maybe throw money at it, but not think really deeply about anything else.
But what's interesting is, right, we're throwing money at that, right? We're throwing money at immigration to get people to leave. We're throwing money at women or families, try to get them to have babies. But we won't throw money, as you kind of started to intimate earlier, at dealing with childcare, right? Which is like a policy that's after 2020 and 2021, we found out that if you give adults money for childcare, you can cut child poverty. You can do a child care tax credit. And you can cut child poverty by 30%. Right? You can put more money in the hands of families. It's amazing. What happened if you give people more money? They won't be poor. And then they're not poor, they're not being so stressed. And when they're not so
Wait.
stressed,
I thought
they'll
people
take
were
care of their
poor.
families better.
No, Jamal, I thought people were poor because they didn't work hard enough and they didn't raise themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yeah.
That's
All
what that
that.
was, right?
Maybe that was it. Turns out that
their
wasn't
life
it.
choices that they have to own, right? That
Right.
whole idea, like, you're choosing to be poor. Didn't you know that?
The same way you chose to be the child of a millionaire and you got an inheritance or got got let into college because your parents went to a certain university. Now they've let you in a legacy benefit, so those things don't count. That's just it's all merit. But if those of us need to get an extra look because of our diversity, that's a problem, because that you shouldn't be getting extra looks. We shouldn't go looking around for people to have benefits, even if those people turned out to be really good students and they are smart and they've got great ideas.
Oh, you mean they
and
actually
can
earned
write
their
really
way
well.
there?
They
You
earned
mean
their
actually
way
earned their way
there.
there? Just made sure that there was a spot available for them, and maybe didn't let the guy whose name is on the building guarantee his grandchildren get in because somebody else actually earned their way in?
Yeah. I know. It's crazy talk. What else you got? What else is going on out in the world? I see that, behind me. Oh, I just want to be clear about what's going on behind me. So I've got a bunch of dolls behind me for people who aren't watching this, because I had a lot of fun this week, because, the president said that if under his tariff regime, girls shouldn't have more than $3, and if you have more than $3, that's a problem. So I was on TV and I had a bunch of dolls with me on TV, and I sort of said, I've got a Cabbage Patch doll here, and an Elmo, and like a NASA bear, and Spidey is here. I think I had a couple of others when I was on the other day. And so the question for me is, which one of the dolls should my daughter not have, right? Because Trump's tariffs are in the way, and now we can't afford to have the dolls. The idea that an American president is arguing for austerity to the American people about how they take care of their kids, and they shouldn't have the ability to buy their kids toys in order for him to put this tariff policy in place that's not actually going to work. It's just bananas to me. It's bonkers. It's bonkers that people would even subscribe to this stuff.
It's a big change though in tone, right? There you heard early on, like, America, prosperous America, we're going to come back,
Right.
everything's going to be great and wonderful, prices, I'm going to lower them on day one. And now, a little more than 100 days in, it's you're all gonna have to suffer a little bit. And guess what? Maybe you don't need all the things that you think you need, because this larger goal of changing how we do everything with money in the government is more important than things like your ability to purchase groceries or buy toys on Christmas. right
And
now,
by the
right,
way,
the toy retailer said that there's going to be an 80% increase in toy prices. And this is the
well,
time right now where they should be planning for what this Christmas and toy season is supposed to be. And again, it's just this idea that Trump, who wants to paint everything in the Oval Office in gold, Mr. Consumption, who wants to show off wealth, is now telling people, you got to do a little less for yourself because I have these big grand plans, and you just have to put up with it. And it's going to be a little suffering. There's going to be a little suffering. There's going to be a little suffering. Not on him though. Not for him.
right. And you should do this. You should do this for this grand experiment he has about tariffs and what it's supposed to mean.
Mm-hmm.
But you shouldn't do it when it comes to, let's say, something like, I don't know, climate change, the climate crisis, right? Like maybe it's okay for us to pay a little bit more in energy costs so that we use a little bit less energy so that we don't destroy the planet and our ability to live on it. Rephrase that. We're not going to destroy the planet. We're going to destroy our ability to live on the planet. The
Mm-hmm.
planet will be fine. The
Yep.
planet's been through a lot
Yep.
worse than us.
Yep.
But but when it comes to having policies that are even just common sense policies that might lead to restraining the amount of fossil fuels that we use, that is not acceptable. That's not acceptable for us to spend a little bit more money on energy to save the fact that our planet needs to have an atmosphere that we can all live in and not be destroyed. That's not okay.
Part of what the Trump administration done is cut climate financing, and that was financing for different countries and places and businesses to adapt and realign how they're doing things to be more climate friendly, right? To be green. And guess what? In the places where the United States has cut all the climate financing, China is stepping in. China
Right.
doesn't care at the end of the day if they can sell their cheaper toys to the United States. They'll find somebody else, right? But what they're also doing is they're stepping in and filling the void where the United States has decided to just pick up and leave. And
Which is
that's
happening everywhere.
everywhere.
It's
The
happening
United States
everywhere.
is just like pulling back from all of these situations, whether it's trade deals, whether it's financing deals, all of the things that we used to call soft power that allowed American values and American quality of life to continue. They're just putting all that back, even to the degree of saying, don't want any foreign made films. They're going to get tariffed too. I remember Trump was really
Right.
upset when Parasite won for Best Oscar, even though it was a phenomenal movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very moving movie about social and political structures. And he was like, this is terrible that we have a non-American here. And guess what? Hollywood is heavily financed by Chinese backers.
It
Disney
is.
movies, all of the big action movies, the Transformer movies at Sony, those were all Chinese
Steve
financed.
Mnuchin.
So
Remember Steve Mnuchin? Ask Steve Mnuchin about
oh
this.
wow, where he been? Where he at?
Right. Former Treasury Secretary, for those who are keeping score at home. No, that's absolutely right. And I think that what we're now witnessing, I think the ridiculousness of the Trump administration, because they're in their effort to program every day, because that's what they're doing, right? I want everybody to pay attention. What they do, I think, is every night they get together, maybe once a week, they get together and they decide what are they going to do to sort of spin the media wheel on Monday, and what are they going to do on Tuesday? And he's going to say something that's going to get everybody all like worked up and in a bunch about it. And I think in the effort to do that, now that we're more than 100 days in, they're literally just pulling shit off the walls and throwing it and trying to get people to keep this animated sense of crisis that we're all living in, just to keep it going, just keep your anxiety high, keep everybody sort of
and
camped down.
it keeps media folks, other folks distracted by the latest outrage, the latest thing we've heard about this, the outrage news, or people tune out. And what we're missing is then the organizing around pushing back on some key issues. Now, that said, most of Trump's tariff policies have been challenged in court. Most of his immigration policies have now been challenged in court, but the courts don't work quickly. And here's a great example in which in North Carolina, a Supreme Court judge, state judge, was elected by more than 700 votes, right? So it's a small margin. Those usually do get challenged, but they kept challenging it and using the courts. 6 months later, that judge has still not been seated. Why? Because the GOP didn't want a Democrat who actually got duly elected to take that seat. 6 months they've delayed that. So this idea that the courts will make everything right, like there's also a problem with how long our system of justice now takes to just even move on the smallest thing. I mean, hey, this is how Trump got away with criming and all these felonies all this time, was because just the courts took too long.
Yep, that has been a problem. But you know who is getting seated in government are centrist leaders all over the world who are pushing back against Donald Trump and the Trump policies. We've seen it now in Canada. We
Mm-hmm.
just saw it in
Mm-hmm.
Australia. There efforts in, this happened in the Philippines, perhaps, and all over the world. In Germany, it's even split, right? So the German government got elected without Trump, but the parliament, it looks like, is passing bills to contest with
Mm-hmm.
Trump because people don't believe that America is going to be a reliable partner.
Yep.
And they, like in Canada, they're overwhelmingly saying, we don't want to be beholden to the United States. We don't want to
Mm-hmm.
become part of the United States. So you've got to elbows up. Is what they say. Like elbows up, which
Yep.
is like what you do when you're about to fight in a hockey team, in a hockey game. Elbows up. So the people are trying to create a world order that doesn't have the United States at the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: is it's even if this only lasts for 3 years, and 3 years from now we go back to some more sane form of government, once people begin to not believe that you're actually their friend, it's really hard to get them to believe that you're going to
Yeah.
be there and stand up for them again.
Well,
And so
fool
we're
me
on a path
once.
that's already happening, right?
Fool me once, shame on me. Oh, excuse me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like, this is their second
Yep.
Trump administration.
Their
They
second
haven't
time
seen his
at the
behavior change. In
rodeo.
fact, they've only seen him double down. And you're seeing world leaders react by pushing back, right? None of
Yep.
this, oh, let me go. The guy who Trudeau got kicked out of his seat because he tried to go kiss the ring at Mar-a-Lago and thought that, bending the knee would actually be helpful. No. One, that's not how you approach a bully. And two,
No,
nobody
right.
wants to see their own leader go do that. Right. Like
Right.
the idea that they're supposed to be equals. And so I'm curious to see how Carney engages, the new prime minister of Canada, how Carney engages with Trump, because he's already said that this is not, we're not playing this game anymore. Weird though that the day before the prime minister shows up, Trump decides to say, "Oh no, well, we're not likely going to invade Canada. No, I'm not likely going to use the military in Canada." I'm like, dude, really? Like that's your posturing, is to be like, "Oh, don't worry, we're not going to use our heavy military on you," when they can literally show up and say, "Guess what? We can shut down the entire northeast of your country
Absolutely.
because we're connected to your grid and you get energy from us. We can just shut it all down." Like, that's a real threat, not
It's real threat.
I'm going to make you the 51st state. Like, that's their leaders, and some leaders at institutions, but definitely foreign leaders, are starting to see that they have to push past and through Trump's bluster in order to be able to maintain not only integrity, but any sense of strength for themselves.
Yeah. And if people are, who've never lived in the northern part of the country, it's hard to realize how much Canada is a part of
Mm-hmm.
people's lives. I grew up in Michigan and Detroit. I used to go to Canada when I was in high school, literally every weekend, every couple of weekends. You know why? Because in Canada,
Because the
you can
drinking age was lower.
drink at 17. And if you can drink at 17, you can drink at 16. So, or drink at 19, right? So we would all go to Canada to go out because you could have a cocktail or beer. And so, but people grow up like that. And that border is the largest land crossing for trade and commerce in the Western hemisphere, right? People, that border just between Detroit and Windsor. And so all over the northern part of the country, the Dakotas, New York, like, Washington, much of that border isn't even policed. It's not fenced. People just go back and
Mm-hmm.
forth, like, to do what they have to do in the course of their everyday. And so when you're talking about taking on Canada, and for those of us who did grow up on the border, you watch Canadian television, and you know
Mm-hmm.
about the hockey games and all that. The idea of fighting the Canadians, like the nicest people in the world, who's mad at Canada? Canada's fantastic. So I think Trump loses a lot of the people he's trying
Mm-hmm.
to get. Minnesota, Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania, all these places that border the Canadian border, where they are kind of blue states or purple states. I think he's losing people by fighting Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think this is hurting the Trump movement.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what he wants the Trump movement to be, right? Because in theory, according to the Constitution, he can't run again. So what is he trying to do? Does he care if he pisses anybody off? If he gets this whatever weird world vision that Stephen Miller and a couple, and Peter Navarro have whispered in his ear? Because Trump doesn't actually really care about these ideas himself. Other people have trained him, or told him this is how to have a real impact. I mean, that's right. Like, this Trump was a Democrat and a Clinton supporter. Like, we all know this.
Right,
This is
right, right.
so. I'm curious to understand over time what this really was, because if he does want to prolong his time in office, he probably shouldn't be hurting people in the states that you're talking about. Or if he wants JD Vance to continue this movement, he shouldn't be hurting people in those states. Not that it's okay to hurt anybody, but if you're just going to do the hard political calculus of it, no one is really benefiting from picking a fight with Canada and Australia and tariffs. Like, nobody in America is benefiting from this right now. So what is the drive to have this weird 100-year-old mercantilist system come back into play?
Before we go, I want to pick up on something you just said about JD Vance. I think JD Vance, I wrote about this on my Kill the Spider Substack. JD Vance is learning the fallacy of the vice presidency, right? Donald Trump, he don't got no checks for JD Vance. Like, he is not thinking about that dude. JD Vance is just a willing tool for Trump for as long as it is that he needs him. And the truth is about the vice presidency is that it really doesn't come with much innate power. It only reflects whatever support you have from the president of the United States. So when Donald Trump says he won't even commit to supporting JD Vance when he runs for president, if he runs for president 2 years from now, it should be a sign of JD Vance. He better start worrying about himself, bro. Like, worry about yourself, because Donald Trump is not checking for you.
Don't forget, Trump almost let his previous vice president get hanged.
Sure did. Like literally.
Literally, yes. Like there was a noose out there for Vice President Pence. Like, this is... So it is
not metaphorically, right? There was an actual gallows.
I mean, like, no, literally, they and he's like, I don't feel like I need to stop that. Let people have their say, I guess. But there is clearly a lot to be watching out for. I just, we had a guest who mentioned this one time, is that they're rushing to do things badly. Which is where there is room to push back and to get things back to something more like normal. But it is still hard to see, in the meantime, how much is going wrong. And to suddenly be cheering for Canada, like, that's weird to me.
It's weird. It's all very weird. But you know what's not weird? Nayyera Hawk is not weird.
Oh, I mean, in the good ways. I mean, we're...
Right. You're like Austin weird. Like, keep Austin weird. Keep Nayyera.
Yeah, keep Austin weird.
Nayyera and Jamal, a little bit weird.
It was a little bit weird. So we're nerds. Like, this is what we're doing in our free time, is sitting here talking about politics. Like, this...
It is true. It is true.
We are those people.
Well, thanks a
lot. We have our weird
today.
people with us. This is not the Tim Walsh weird, though. Like, I'm not weird in that I want to control other people's bodies, either as robots or as, humans. Like, no, that's not where I'm going with this.
Way to bring it back to the robots. I really appreciate that. That circles it all right up. Thanks, guys. Good to talk to everybody. Talk to you next time on Trailblaze.